All right. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy Thursday night. We're a day late on this one, but appreciate you guys being patient. Had some internet problems last night. I don't know if I have fiber now. I used to have Starlink. We had some people recommend Starlink for me, and I'll tell you, it's great, especially if you live in remote areas. I had the more expensive one that goes on your RV. It's like $1,500. Upload speed was decent. Download speed was pretty good. Not quite good enough for streaming though. So I probably could have rigged that up last night, but actually I think I turned my account off. So should have sold it. I see a lot of them repurposed and resold online. There's like Facebook groups for them. Don't get scammed though. So anyway, lots of things going on in macroeconomics. As you guys well know, if you were here, if you're watching, anything's fair game if you want to run it down in the chat tonight. So macroeconomics, digital assets, wealth management, estate planning, all the things that we commonly talk about here. Any particular assets. I've got my team. We had a person ask about SUI or SWI or SUI, however you say it. They are analyzing that, and they're going to put a comparison together with XRP. I don't think it is going to take any market share from XRP, but we'll see what my team has to say. Right? We have analysts. We have our CIO that's putting that together with our team. So. We'll report back to you guys on what they find. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. Like I said, anything's fair game. If you want to put it up here in the chat, we will answer it. So without rambling on, we'll go right into it. Mighty Tone says, if it's appropriate, would you please comment in general on using qualified trustee, private trust company LLC in Wyoming as part of your structure? Thanks. This is a good question, Mighty Tone. Depends on what type of trust you have, and what all you want in place. So I need to do a whiteboard version of this, and specific for these questions. We're going to draw it. I've got a pen and paper here for you. I know it's kind of crude, but we'll put it together. So we got a PTC up here, and it manages this entity down here, the LLC, that's owned by the Domestic Asset Protection Trust. Owned. Okay. So I don't know if you can read this. We're going to put it up here. Oh boy. Okay. So you have a private trust company up here at the top. This could also be a C Corp. So if, you can structure it a couple different ways, but it's the management corporation. We'll take the question off the screen so that you guys can see. Down here at the bottom, we recommend most people set up an LLC for their digital assets when they're first starting out. So this would be the structure that you originally set up. And you moved your assets into, and you would originally be the manager, but you might delegate that to the private trust company later. The trust over here, so this is a digital or a domestic asset protection trust, also filed in Wyoming. You may have your qualified trustee here that manages this for you, or a trust protector to make sure that they step in if your trustee, isn't doing what they're supposed to. But this owns the equity or some of the assets from this LLC, and they're all managed by the private trust corporation, which has stock. And the reason that you might structure it this way over having another LLC here or something else is the tax benefits you get for a private trust company versus just a regular LLC. It's taxed as a C Corp. So anyway, hopefully that gives you an idea of what that would look like if it's structured how we do it. There's no wrong way to do. Well, there are definitely wrong ways to do things, but there are lots of ways to skin a cat. I'll just say that. So But specific to your questions, I would probably have to know a little bit more about your specific situation to give you more further context than what I just discussed there. But it could definitely be part of your structure and might be the best solution for you. It would, again, you just have to speak with our team and our attorneys, and they can help work that out for you. But I'm glad that you're doing research now. You may already have some of these structures. This is going to be stuff that has become more prevalent. We talked to Perkins Coie today. They have an estate planning division there with their law firm. More people are starting to get into digital assets now that BNY Mellon has been given the capability to custody Bitcoin and Ethereum. Last weekend, we did have them, like I stated before, at our conference last week, or our event, whatever you want to call it, the summit that we put on for family offices. Had participation from them and Fidelity and Citi and Goldman and JP Morgan. We're all in the room. So it's coming. And they see it. And what's crazy to me is, we're early. When we were talking to them today, they said, you guys are one of the very few people that do this specific for digital assets. So that, made me feel good, kind of gave me the nod. And to custody assets too, it's the way that this was done before, you had qualified custodians or an RIA to manage it, was you would give your distribution half of your keys on a piece of paper. You just cut them in half, and you'd have to, recreate or bring the wallet back together every single time you wanted to issue a transaction, and your trustee would have to put their keys with your keys and open up the wallet, and then you could execute a transaction. They'd submit it for you. Secure, safe, nobody's getting your stuff. But if one of you guys loses those pieces of paper, it's gonna be a rough day. So glad we have qualified custodians now, and we can make sure that the distribution trustee is a signatory on the accounts, and we can actually structure who has to sign first for transactions to go through. So anyway, solving problems. Jesse Escobar says, do you recommend a revocable trust over an irrevocable trust? We'll continue. Which do you have? At this stage, I only have digital assets. I feel premature to get an irrevocable trust. So an asset protection trust is always irrevocable. And you would have to have, somebody else as your management trustee or distribution trustee on that. You could sit as the trustee yourself, but then you open yourself up to creditor liability and somebody to be able to pierce the veil. So anyway, most often, well, always, living trusts are revocable or irrevocable. The way that I look at those are more for assets that are not going to appreciate substantially in value over your lifetime, over future generations. You would put things in there that you wanted to pass on to a family member and have some creditor protection, but really just to keep things out of probate. So, and things that you're going to use on a regular basis. So your home that you actually live in, your vehicles that you drive. Wouldn't put my business in there. Wouldn't put real estate in there outside of my primary residence. Maybe a vacation home, if you have one of those, you could put it in there. Family heirlooms, we often see inside of a revocable trust, a living trust, and gold and silver. There's probably a lot of people watching this that have an allocation to that. We often see that also inside of a living trust. So sometimes it's in the asset protection trust too. Just depends on how much you have and what you think it's going to do and how you're using it. But yeah, so you get better tax benefits from an irrevocable trust. A revocable trust allows you to change things after you've set it up. If you have kids that you aren't so sure about, probably a better way to go about it is the revocable trust. You'd be able to change things. Same thing for like your wife. If you're pretty well set, that the people that are going to be the beneficiaries are going to be the beneficiaries irrespective of your feelings toward them long term, then the irrevocable living trust is probably the better way to go. You may want to set that up previous to getting married. That's what we see often in that circumstance. If you have the revocable, you may want to put your spouse on there later. Again, these are very personal decisions. It's not up to me. We have conversations, with our attorneys and our clients, and we make sure that we're doing whatever's in their best interest. And we often just try to present the data so that they can make the best choices for themselves. So digital assets, especially if you believe that they're going to appreciate substantially, I would be looking at, and there aren't really even so there's 80 something types of trusts, and trusts are really just contract law, and you can really orchestrate them however you want. So you could include provisions from a spendthrift trust and a dynasty trust and a waterfall trust and a bunch of different things inside the same trust, and kind of weave it together. Our attorneys are very good at doing all of that. These are just names and labels that people have put on different types of contracts to be able to market them to a specific audience. People want something that's productized, right? You buy this type of trust because it has a certain name or feeling or emotion attached to it, when in reality, you can get those same provisions or protections with all of the other complementary stuff that you're looking for. So don't limit yourself when you're having those conversations with people. I think a lot of people get bamboozled by attorneys that are orchestrating a trust for them, and they, as somebody that makes a living off of that, what you would do is you would templatize it, productize it, make it fast and scalable, and you would try to churn through as many as you could, and maybe change the nomenclature and the language in that document a little bit per each client. But to really have something catered toward you, it is going to take time from an attorney, and they aren't going to be cheap. The attorneys that we work with, somewhere between $600 and $900 an hour, especially on the estate planning side. Get ready to spend, somewhere between $18,000 and $25,000 on a, asset protection trust, domestic asset protection trust. If you want a trigger trust that pushes assets to another jurisdiction, if there's problems, that's going to cost you more, right? If you want bells and whistles and LLCs and other things inside the trust, other provisions and protections, then, it's going to run you a good amount of money. But at the same time, you're going to know that you're protected and things are done the right way. So I'll rambled on there, but hopefully that gives you a better idea of the difference between a revocable trust and irrevocable trust and the other types of trusts that exist in the market. Then you have non-grantor versus grantor. That's a whole nother discussion. I don't know. Kevin, appreciate you on the memberships, brother. People are going to be going crazy over the dinging. Let's see here. Jesse Escobar. Does it matter which type of trust I have before liquidity event? 25 million, married. Already spoke with Rustin. Very good. He's very knowledgeable, and he leans toward an irrevocable trust, trying to make sense of it. I normally go with what Rustin says. Sometimes I do have pushback on things just because he wants to move a little bit faster than I want to with clients. Sometimes we want to conserve liquidity and, make it where people only pay for what they need when they need it. But if you do think you're going to be in excess of that amount, or you have that amount already, it probably makes a lot of sense to go ahead and do the irrevocable trust. Again, you said you're married. I don't want to air your business out on here. So maybe you just, email me or my team. It's just info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and we can run it down together, brother. The old man of XRP recently joined the Mastermind group. Should have done it a long time ago. Very cool to hear. Awesome content. Still thinking $100 by end of year. Thanks for all you're doing. I think it's quite possible. I think it could even be higher than that. You see Link2's post today about XRP to the moon, $1,000 per XRP. If we see implementation on the backside of the stock market to be able to settle that for the DTCC and Project Ion, I think that that's feasible for sure. I think if there's a liquidity crisis and a need for it, I think it's definitely possible that we could see even more than 3 digits. But again, that's extremely dependent on the actual use of the asset. I think $100 is really the bare minimum of what they would need as far as liquidity in XRP before they could start using it for Swift or some of these other systems. So, Kevin, you love to mess with people, don't you? Appreciate you on the memberships. Appreciate you joining the Mastermind group. I think it's a really cool place to be. I need to give these mugs out. I've got like 100 of these things, and we had them at the last event. But I've still got, I don't know, probably 80 or 90 of them that we need to give people. So if you guys want to join the Mastermind group, come to an event, you get a free mug along with the membership. But aside from that, just try to really provide the community with as much value as we can. I've been a part of a lot of other masterminds that cost way more than what we charge, and I got less value from those. I will say the network and connections of people that I've met in masterminds has been invaluable. Even if you join a community and only meet one person out of that community that you do business with, or have a mutual interest, or it's really the relationships that you get out of those ecosystems, especially when you have aligned missions or just thinking in general. To be a part of a community this early on that's forward thinking and progressive and proactive, working to make sure that they manage their wealth well on the other side of this liquidity event, I feel extremely blessed and grateful to be a part of the community myself, because I think it's invaluable. I think on the other side of appreciation, it's going to be difficult to find people, I don't want to say that are genuine, but it's, becomes harder to discern people's motives. Right now, people still don't believe that it's going to happen, right? And so if you have people around you that they're participating with you, that they believe in the same thing as you do, it matters. So, super excited to have that community. We do run private investments in the community. We've got a deal going right now. Can't talk about what company it is, but it's probably one that you guys know. And would love to have people here in the community. If you want access to that, I guess that's the better way to say it, you can go join the community. We do have 1 month free if you want to check it out. It's just going to be Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number one, MO, like month. And that will get you a free month of social or Carbon One, whichever you'd like to participate in. So thank you for being part of the group, the old man of XRP, and appreciate your question. Atlantic Living. Have you ever considered doing a debate type podcast versus RP or WOB and XRP? The importance to hold S big chunk long term versus, I guess that's A big chunk versus aggressively trading it all away. I believe that would be beneficial. Yeah. RP or WAB. Not sure what those abbreviations are. I assume they're other tokens. Maybe Reaper, or I don't know what WAB is. I mean, we could definitely have Patrick Riley on. He's a friend. I like Patrick. I think he's extremely intelligent. If that's what you're referring to. Look, my objective the whole time for everything that I've done is to put everybody in a position where they could mitigate tax implications, right? And they could hold their wealth somewhere safe where they knew it was protected and insured, be able to borrow against it, really. And we finally have that, like before price appreciation, which I was concerned about. We are onboarding clients right now into Digital Wealth Partners. It is an SEC registered IA, investment advisor. We do have RIAs. They're licensed underneath the firm that provide financial advice. They're both Series 65. We're about to register Series 7 and 63 for alternative investments and securities, private securities. And then 24. I'm not sure what the 24 does, but we have that as well. So the firm's growing. Super excited on that front. Been, you know, anytime you're doing something new, there's always some stumbling blocks. You know, coming out the gate, it took a little bit longer to get everything structured and situated over there. With we did never get it done with Archax, but Anchorage and On-Ramp, they were two of the people that spoke at our event last Thursday. Securitize is who purchased On-Ramp, and it's On-Ramp, or it's Securitize for Advisors is the name of their company now. Eric was our speaker, and then we had Joe. Anyway, we'll have, I think that media and those videos are going to come back to us within the next week here. Anybody that's in the mastermind will get access to all those videos and all that content that we shot there. We'll probably put snippets and stuff out on just traditional social media, but the full videos and everything that was discussed will only be available there in the mastermind. So try to make sure that we take care of our members as usual. Let's see here. Wild Bill. Why will institutions and banks want to hold XRP if transactions are near instant and the XRPL provides ODL? What drives demand for XRP? This is a good question. And this is why I also believe that XRP ends up being tier 1 collateral designated by the BIS. So if it's riskless, because all of these transactions are moving over the network and it's holding price stability, we also saw the CME adopt XRP and a pricing standard. That's very bullish for the derivatives market as well. I think that it's going to end up being an asset that people want to hold as collateral for derivatives, and that will drive demand, and so people will just hold it, and it would lower the supply on the open market to where there's only a certain amount of XRP floating around to be able to settle those transactions. In ODL, they're going to have to pay Ripple whatever their interest rate is, right? So to keep Ripple competitive, you would need investment banks to have an allocation themselves to be able to choose to use that XRP that they're holding to be able to settle transactions, or some other parties to be lending XRP similar to ODL to be able to facilitate that. And so I don't think it'll be just Ripple that is loaning out XRP in that capacity. Obviously, they're the only ones doing it now, but I think as things progress and the price appreciates, there may be other parties that choose to do that. And if it is tier 1 collateral in the eyes of the BIS, and that's the designation that it's given, right now for the derivatives market, people are using treasuries, right? And so they have to hold those or borrow them from somebody else as the collateral in those circumstances. And that's a lot of the problem that exists, and the risk in the current market is that it's the same treasuries loaned out over and over and over again that people are using as their collateral, which is not good. So I think that they need, one, a blockchain that allows people to assess the risk and the exposure that they have in that market, which it was Bear Stearns and Lehman in 2008 that really didn't understand the full exposure that they had to the housing market. And when it collapsed on itself, they went under, and we had a lot of problems. So if you're not able to assess the risk because you're just gambling, which a lot of the investment banks are, again, they're borrowing the same treasury over and over again and then using that as the collateral on these bets. It's just not a good circumstance to be in. So I think that XRP brings some clarity to that situation, and then also provides another asset that can be held as collateral in that circumstance, and also to be able to offset the liabilities on balance sheets. If it's a tier 1 asset, it is something that you could borrow against easily, and should continue to appreciate in value over time for you to be able to draw debt against to deploy into other markets. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you. But I think that there's a lot of circumstances in which people will just lock up their XRP in liquidity pools or AMMs those are other mechanisms by which the supply for the open market to be able to settle transactions would also be reduced. So, Atlantic Living says, I know you've answered this copious amounts of times, but it's a good vocabulary word for people. What is your updated view as of today regarding the estimated amount of XRP available for retail? A lot of different opinions on this. When I looked, it's almost been a year and a half ago that I really looked into the exchange's wallets and figured out which ones were actually treasury and used for the exchange for people to be able to buy XRP. I think there was around 1.2 billion at that point. There were a few other wallets that held $1 billion that were supplying the exchanges. If I had to guess right now, there's one account that keeps pretty good tabs on this. I can't think of the name of it offhand. I'll have to find it and I'll post it later. But they seem to think that there's less than $500 million on the open market available for retail to purchase. I can tell you that, a couple, like 20 or 30 million was purchased not too long ago by people that I've had conversations with. Again, I don't give people financial advice. I just have conversations with people, and they make their own financial decisions, completely independent of me. I just give compelling reasons as to why XRP may or may not do really well in the near future. And so I have seen some people make some larger buys. But yeah, I think maybe $500 million is all that's left for retail. And I'll make this prediction. And again, same thing like I said on the BTC tweet. If I'm wrong, I will say I was wrong. I anticipate a day post price appreciation and use of XRP that retail will not have access. The only two ways that retail will be able to get exposure to the asset will be through vehicles like Grayscale's Trust or BlackRock's ETF or the ETP in Europe, maybe through a fund or a private party transaction between very wealthy individuals, like you see for Bitcoin, sometimes OTC. I do not think that exchanges will be willing to sell their XRP. I think that they will be hodling it for liquidity purposes and to be able to settle transactions within their ecosystem through the DEX or liquidity pools, the AMMs within their own ecosystems, so that they don't have to rely on somebody else for liquidity. And retail is just going to be shut out. So I could be wrong about that. There might be markets or pockets that exist. But again, I think it's going to be OTC and then through, institutional vehicles on the other side of price appreciation that people have access to this stuff. And that may not be just XRP. That may be XDC. It may be XLM. It may be Hedera. It may be... There's a lot of other tokens that I think will be used at scale by enterprises and institutions for different applications and reasons. And once it's gone, it's gone. If they need it to be able to do whatever they need to do on the network, they're going to gobble it up. And the only way, like I said, that retail will be able to get exposure is through an ETF or structured product that some of these larger players offer. Just my opinion. So hopefully that answers your question there, Atlantic Living. Gail, hey ma'am, good to see you. Thank you for coming to the event. She says, thank you for continuing to take time to teach us. I enjoyed the Dallas gathering. Almost gave Ray my valet ticket the next morning. Must have had a good time, Gail. That's good. We had a good laugh and took pics. Yeah, we had a really good time at the event. I was very happy with the way that things turned out. Venue, we may have another one in April. I think we've already started the conversations on that. Very fruitful for us. A lot of connections, a lot of conversations. Crypto Cowboy, appreciate you guys coming out. There was, a lot of people that came and got to hear Anchorage speak in particular about their service and everything that they offer. And was really cool to I enjoyed meeting people in person. It's a little bit different. I talked to a lot of people on Zoom. My whole team was in one spot for once, which was cool. They all flew in here to Dallas and spoke at the event. We're there together, got to work together in a co-working space. Just, I don't know, something magical about having everybody together. So thank you again for coming, and I'm glad you enjoyed the event, Gail. Let's see here. CJ says you're the best. I don't know about that, man, but thank you for the kind words. He says, if BTC is the beta test coin, do you think ETH is the same for smart contracts? I do. Since XRP will implement them and cost so much less in fees. Yeah, we need hooks on the mainnet. You need light smart contracts on the XRPL for CBDCs to be launched at scale on the XRPL. Right now, RLUSD is on the EVM sidechain and on Ethereum. That's so, and a developer could tell me I'm wrong on this, so don't, take it with a grain of salt. From my understanding, hooks is like light smart contracts. So just like one if-then statement on some circumstances, whereas an EVM smart contract is much more intricate and can be kind of follow-on things. So I don't know what people are going to need for CBDCs. I guess it's going to depend on the country. But I do think we're going to see CBDCs launched in mass by parties affiliated with the XRPL. I think Ripple is one of those parties, but I think there are other parties as well. But yeah, I think that, BTC and ETH are the Netscape and it's not Spotify, the Napster of crypto. I've put that out publicly again. People have opposition to that. That's okay. I'm not saying they go anywhere. I don't know long term. I think they both had fantastic runs up to this point. I'm happy for all the people that got into them early and have done really well. Most of the people that I know that have diversified into other types of investments through the money that they've made in Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is what you should do. Some of them have done that by liquidating those positions, others by borrowing against them, others by, swapping their ETH for NFTs that have dropped in value significantly. Once the space matures, I think you're going to know the long-term winners, kind of like the FANG stocks of crypto in the next 3 to 5 years. And David Schwartz and Sam Bankman, however you feel about him, he's a sharp guy. Had a conversation. It's probably been 2020. They said that they thought that there would be somewhere between 3 and 5 L1s that were the main base networks that the whole world runs on, and then everything else would just kind of be layer 2s on those. So that's kind of my view of it as well. I don't think BTC or ETH are going to be either one of the L1s that are used in the long term. I could be wrong. I will say I'm wrong if I'm wrong, but I don't think that. So that's why I refer to them as, early movers. Great. They're out there. They have brand name recognition. They're blue stock, according to a lot of the investment banks that don't know much about the space right now. But I do think that those will fall kind of by the wayside in market cap and vogue as things progress. Mr. X says, hey, Jake, can you speak on custody at Anchorage? I assume that's what he says. He says acreage, but it's Anchorage, like anchor, like the anchor you drop in the ocean off your ship. And are you doing this for yourself? Yes. For our assets, yes. Well, so if you're in the Mastermind, you get to see Joe speak on it. Again, he's 1 month for free, like I said, with the code earlier. And we should launch that, like I said, hopefully we get that video back at the end of this week, maybe early next week. But he goes into super deep detail. So they were a Wyoming chartered trust bank. And then I talked to the lawyer earlier today at Perkins and Coie that migrated that to a federally chartered trust bank, and they got in before anybody else, and nobody else has been granted that since. And they can do staking, which nobody else can do legally, which is super cool. So they have the legal, like, this is in the contract that was signed for their federal charter, that shows that they have the capability to do that. So anyway, they have $100 million in crime insurance. They have a multi-sig wallet that has to be signed to be able to remove assets. They shard the keys and hold those across HSMs and level 4 facilities all across the U.S. and a few international jurisdictions to make it quantum proof. They're super willing to work with us, which is another thing that I love about them. We have a Ben Hearn is our account guy there. He's awesome. Comes from the TradFi space, brilliant. He actually made the introduction to our COO, Aaron Freeze, and yeah, wouldn't trade her for the world either. So super grateful for him and his team over there and what they've done for us and Anchorage as a whole. I think they're definitely the leader in the space when it comes to wealth management and digital assets. There's definitely nobody else that has stepped up and has the same systems and protocols and things in place to be able to facilitate that at scale for wealth managers. And so super happy to be working with them. If you have any specific questions around anything I just discussed, again, you can just email us. For that one, you'd probably want to go to info@digitalwealthpartners.net, and somebody there can explain. We've got some literature that we can send over to you, and you can ask whatever questions you'd like on the custody at Anchorage. Let's see here. If I don't hurry up, I'm not going to get very far in these. Let's see here. AJ Trades, I'm going to give it to you, brother. When Moon. Depends what Moon is for you, right? I had a guy that asked something the other day, like, and everybody asked what's enough XRP, what's enough of this coin, what's enough of that coin. You're going to get another bull run. You're going to get a utility-driven bull run. A lot of the assets that people here that are watching this or invested in are going to do really well. And you're going to have opportunities to be able to generate yield with those and provide liquidity in ecosystems or lend them out. Those things are coming. The ability to borrow against them, something we're working on specifically. So all these products and services around these assets will be developed, I think, a year from now. Like, I don't say everybody and their mom, but a lot of the institutions we're having conversations with, we're drafting agreements and doing the legal work kind of ahead of everybody else to make sure that we have the capability and orchestrating the partnerships. But they'll have enough liquidity, and if it's tier 1 collateral, they'll work with us on it or work with you on it. So figure out what, I guess the simplest way to answer this is, my definition of financially free is you make enough 2 times the amount of money it takes to live your life, pay all your bills every single month from passive income. So if you can live on, let's say you make $10,000 a month and that covers all of your bills and gives you a little extra and you have a little breathing room. When you make $20,000 a month from passive income, where you don't have to do much to deal with it, and that just shows up in your bank account, that's my definition of financially free. So do you have to make $1 million a year to be financially free? No. It's $250,000 a year. Maybe it's 300,000 before taxes, if that's kind of your number. And most people probably think that sounds awesome, right? I would encourage you to write down everything that you want, total up the bills, dream, figure out what your dream lifestyle is, get that number, and then figure out a way to be able to make twice that amount in passive income every single month, and what your assets would need to be worth in order to be able to generate that if it was a 5% return on those assets. And that would be When Moon. Until then, I would continue to work. I wouldn't quit my job. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that get emotional and may make hasty decisions. You see a lot of memes about this with like the McDonald's guys and Bitcoin. My concern is that people are going to come into a little bit of money. If you get a couple $1 million and you think you're going to have it made, I wish that it was 1990 and $1 million was what it was then. Unfortunately, our currency's been devalued a lot since then, and it just doesn't go as far as it used to. Most people are going to need at least $7 to $10 million to retire by the time they're 65, because most people are going to live longer too, with modern medicine and everything else that's going on. I tell my son that I'm pretty confident that I'll probably live to be somewhere between 120 and 150 years old. If I take care of myself and we do have the medical advancements that I think we're going to in my lifetime, that's actually pretty reasonable. So if I retire at 65, I better have a sweet nut to cover almost another 80 years. So I think people will work longer. We're already starting to see that. Social Security's been pushed out. But again, I think if people are healthy and they have a good quality of life, then that's not a problem either, right? Anyway, rambling on here, but hopefully that kind of nails down. I don't think of Wind Moon like a date or a certain price or any of that. I work backward from what my financial freedom number is. And then whenever I have that amount of assets and I would be able to generate that type of passive income, that would be my Wind Moon. God first. Appreciate you on the super chat, brother. Amen. How high do you think XRP could hit before the end of this year? And how high do you think it could go next year? I know it's not financial advice. It all depends on how it's used, and when it's used. If it's not used and it'll just continue to sit here at 60 cents, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that we're probably not too far off from it being used, but Swift, if it's just used for Swift, somewhere between 50 and $100. If it's used again to settle the back end of the stock market through Project Ion and the DTCC, you could see four digits. Completely reasonable to settle, $600 trillion worth of value. Between that market and FX and commodities and a lot of the other things that I think are going to end up tokenized on the XRPL, and to be settled through XRP, not necessarily tokenized on the XRPL. I think that that's completely reasonable to see, three to four digits by the end of next year. That would be my guess. And that's again predicated on it being used at scale for those applications I mentioned. Dave J, how are you, sir? He says, good evening to everybody. Just to clarify, once we move 100K of assets into Digital Wealth Partners and set up a bank account, we will start earning 4 to 8% yield on that investment, I think you said. So we have the opportunity to do that through covered calls and puts with a partner. There's risk associated with that. It's not riskless. It's very low risk, but there's risk associated with that. But yeah, we do have that capability. We're finalizing the tri-party agreement between us and them to be able to facilitate that. So you would hold your accounts with us at Anchorage. You'd have a sub account, move whatever portion of your assets you wanted to use for that strategy into that sub account, and then we'd be able to run those covered calls and puts using that collateral. The assets never leave the account. You are a signer on that account. Assets can't move until you sign, so they're not going anywhere. You have full visibility of them all the time, and we would generate 4 to 8% on an annual basis using a very conservative trading strategy. But yes, I'd love to have you. So you did mention, a couple of the qualifications there. So we do have a $100,000 minimum to work with Digital Wealth Partners, and that's current value of digital assets. And then the other consideration there is the assets are held in some type of entity. So either an LLC or a trust is holding the assets. Let's see here. Martin, he says, how have you been? I'm great, blessed. What do you think are the 1 to 100 chances of us seeing an increase? Everybody's asking an increase on XRP's price. 99.9999999% would be my, I'll just say 100%, that we will see an increase in the price of XRP at some point in the future. Dennis, thank you for the super chat, brother. If you have a question, post it down below. I'll try to find it, make sure I answer it. Bugsy says, you're awesome. Thank you for the kind words. Your knowledge and videos give me hope. I'm glad to hear it. As soon as price goes up a little bit on XRP, I will contact your office. I don't have enough assets right now. Yeah, love to work with you when it makes sense. We're trying to make sure that we have things set up in place where, you don't have to worry about it. Not to say that you don't have to worry about it, but you have somebody that you can work with that's already orchestrated all the partnerships and done all the work, so that you don't have to go sort through this stuff yourself or work with somebody else that hasn't got it all put together yet. And we're still working through it. It's not like it's, it's always an evolution. Once we have the capability to deploy XRP into the AMMs and liquidity pools, some of the other amendments, we're waiting for digital identity to be passed. I think at that point we will start to see some adoption from institutions of the mainnet for the XRPL. We got the fix finally pushed the other day for the AMMs. The digital identity fix, I think, is going to go live tomorrow or the next day. And then I think we should see DID voted on and implemented on the mainnet. Everything's lining up for Q4 here. So looking forward to working with you when it makes sense. This is interesting. Singapore Flyer says, appreciate everything you are. Thank you. I want to give my siblings after price appreciation. Is there an easy way within an LLC? I'm not talking the small 18K annual gift. Post price appreciation. So I don't know where you reside. Here domestically, to me in the U.S., each person gets 13.6 million that they can gift over their lifetime. You would just want to file, I think it's a 709 form with the IRS when you do make those gifts. It's going to be taking out of your ability to move things into a trust, but those are all considerations that are independent for each client, right? So if you want to make gifts to specific people directly to them with no tax implications, you can certainly do that. You would just need to file those forms if you're here in the U.S. If you're in a different jurisdiction, if you're in Canada, gift it away. Gift as much as you want over your lifetime. No problem. If you're in other countries and they're ruled by the monarchy, good luck. It's going to be a rough go to give anything to anybody. It's not going to have tax implications. So it's going to depend on where you are in the world. But, hopefully that gives you some clarity if you are here in the U.S. and what that looks like. Let's see here. Hey, Jake, what are your thoughts regarding the XRP price not dramatically dropping after the bull cycle due to the large amount of dollars being transferred through XRP on the XRPO? Would price continue rising? I think you're going to hit a stabilization point at $100. I think that's, like I said, the minimum amount of liquidity in XRP to be able to sustain price with volume of transactions moving over the mainnet to hold that. I think until that price, we could see some volatility, some up and down. So if we moved up to like $50, there may be a pullback before it's pulled up to 100. I don't know. But yeah, there could certainly be some more volatility until there is enough liquidity in the asset to begin settling transactions that are running in tandem with different financial sectors. So like I mentioned, Project Ion on the backside of the stock market, I think that it's probably going to require 4-digit XRP to be able to have enough liquidity to settle those transactions. Swift, 3 digits. But like I said, if it's just 2 digits or less than that, there's probably still some volatility ahead, and there might be a pullback before we see something go higher. So you never go broke taking profits. I'll say that. Okay. So if you have certain things within your lifestyle that you'd like to upgrade, or things that you would like to do, or money that you would like to set aside, understand the tax implications that's going to be involved with taking that profit. But at the same time, you're definitely not wrong to do so. So if you're taking that profit to be able to buy back at lower prices, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Thank you, King. Thank you for the kind words, sir. It's much appreciated. That type of stuff means a lot. It's not always easy doing a lot of the stuff that I deal with on a daily basis, and kind words definitely help. So thank you for the compliment. Let's see here. Just now getting into the comments for tonight. We're going to try to get to the bottom of this. We're almost an hour in. I'll hang out extra long with you guys tonight. We'll run it up till 11 p.m. tonight, Central Time, just so that I can make sure that I get through the rest of these questions here and ramble on as much as I want to in between. Darlene? Probably butchered that. I apologize. Thanks again for the help. Can I use a PTY LTD company for your assets? I would assume that's there in the British Virgin Islands. Yes, you absolutely can. We have a gentleman that we're working with there in Australia that did the same. His is a trust that's there in the British Virgin Islands. But you could definitely use a party limited company there in BVI to work with us if that's something you're interested in. And again, if you have questions around that, happy to answer those. Just email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. Kevin, I love you, brother. He obviously watched. He has an ex-wife, so probably. And Gary, I don't know if Gary has kids or not. Surely he does. I know. Look, everybody doesn't like Gary. Okay. And I really didn't like the way he answered the questions for Congress. He still, backed away from everything and never really answered any questions. Hester, I was super proud of Hester at the hearing on, I guess it was Tuesday. She really stepped up and presented the SEC well. And I'm hopeful, maybe Crypto Mom gets the chair in the not too distant future. And so, anyway, I've said this for a long time. Happy to be wrong on this too, but I think Gary's doing his job. I think Gary's in that seat for a very specific reason. This may be his, I don't want to say get out of jail free card. That's probably not the best way to put it, but kind of like that. He was involved with the Steele dossier and the Clintons and some things there, and his ex-wife's trading account is very good. Ex-wife, I said that. So anyway, I think he was put in that position and he's doing his job, and the lawsuit and a lot of what has played out has been, intentional is also probably not the right word. Orchestrated is also not the right word, but well done to make sure that certain things transpired, that XRP did get legal clarity before anything else. Yeah, I'm okay with Gary. Gary and the SEC gave people the opportunity to continue to buy a lot of these assets at very low values for an extra 4 years. I think a lot of this could have happened in 2020 and or 21 had the election gone differently and some things changed and been a little bit different, but they didn't. And so the timeline for a lot of the implementation of this stuff has been drug out. But I think that there's a ton of people here that had an opportunity and bought assets that would have not been able to participate in what is going to be one of the largest wealth transfers of our lifetime. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for, I definitely wouldn't have been able to capitalize on positions or set things up to be able to help as many people as I've been able to or will be able to if that hadn't transpired. So I would thank Gary Gensler if I ever meet him. Again, you can feel how you want about him, but I'm happy that things have turned out the way that they have. So, Callie Hippo, interesting name. She says the SEC created SOB 121, but allows BNY Mellon to custody crypto. Don't even follow their own rules. Gary needs to step down and be replaced by Hester. I completely agree. I think that may also have been set up for that to happen. Did get to see and speak with Hester earlier this year. Very nice lady. More on the conservative side. Got to see her at Georgetown in DC when she spoke there. Also got to meet what's Miss Believe's first name? Anyway, she's Ripple's U.S. compliance officer. She was there, and that was the only person that Hester wouldn't take questions or comment from in the room, which was interesting. Laura's Miss Believe's first name. Anyway, yeah, I agree with you. I think Hester's positioned herself really well to take that seat, and she showed that on Tuesday when they asked a lot of questions, and she stepped up to the plate and took accountability for a lot of things that the SEC has done, and where Gary didn't. And I do think SOB 121 is their way of. There could be a problem with Coinbase and all of the BTC that's held there for the ETFs. Not saying there will be, but there could be. And that is a very big risk because all of the custody for those assets are held at one custodian. So if there was a bankruptcy or something else, would be horrible for the industry, would be another black eye. And that was one of the things that they discussed at the hearing and brought to the SEC. And I think that's why you saw immediately after. Actually, it was a few days before that they allowed. I think it was Saturday because we were there talking to the BNY Mellon guy, and he showed me. It was Friday. It was Friday last week that they got the capability to custody Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think that they knew that was going to be a comment or concern by Congress, and so that they are trying to kind of walk that back on SOB 121 and allow. I mean, BNY Mellon custodies. What did he tell me? Like 55 trillion in assets, current value. They currently manage under AUM. I think they have like 7 or 8 trillion under management. So custody and management, two separate things. Just AUC and AUM are acronyms that you're going to hear on those. But they are the world's largest custodian. We're Bank of New York Mellon, Bank of New York and Mellon. I think they combined in the early 1900s. So they've been around for over 100 years. Really dominate the industry in that area. So for them to be the first ones really granted exemption from that SOB 121 and ability to hold Bitcoin and Ethereum off balance sheet, I think makes sense. People might get mad about favoritism, but they have Fireblocks as their institutional custodian partner for the software that they've built. They're well equipped. I would say that. So I'm not mad about it. I think it's a step forward, at least. And hopefully we get some other custodians that are allowed as well. We kind of have, I don't want to say a monopoly right now, but we're really one of 2 SEC registered RIAs that do what we do. And we are by far the largest as far as clients, number of clients that we work with. So excited about that. Again, super, super blessed and grateful. Robbie says, covered calls and puts. If a call is met, do assets need to be sold at a strike, or can be called, negated, passed on the potential premium gains? Yeah, we're working on that. So we want to be able to roll them if assets are called, and we're working out ways to mitigate that risk. So we're doing a spread, right? You have calls and puts to be able to offset that if there is some of that, to be able to make sure that there's not an issue. There is the potential for that though, right? And so that's what I'm saying. There's no risk. A lot of the strategies that are built out for calls and puts trade within a band, and so if you have significant volatility, assets can get called. For XRP in particular, we're maybe buying calls at super high prices. The problem is that there's really not a market for it yet. We've got to find a counterparty that's willing to take those options. I think we have it, but within the band we do, but at the high prices, it may be a challenge to find those people. So that's currently what we have to be able to hold assets in qualified custody without them moving and be able to generate yield on it. We will continue to offer other things aside from that in the future and build out more ways to be able to generate yield on the asset. Again, we do have the capability to borrow against it, and then we can deploy that liquidity somewhere else that generates significantly more than the interest that's due, to be able to cover the interest and then also pay out to the client and generate returns that way. So, and it also diversifies you away from crypto because a lot of that is private investments that we have access to, real estate and other things. So those are options as well, but the covered calls and puts is the main thing at the moment. And I appreciate you mentioning that. Like I said, always risk associated with generating yield. We're doing our best to mitigate that for people. And it's something you have to consent to. It's not like we just stick you in that strategy either, right? So, and there's also, higher risk strategies that could potentially generate more yield and lower risk. We have those conversations. I'm not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. Please speak with a financial professional before making any investment decisions. We do have those at Digital Wealth Partners, which is, like I said, a registered SEC registered IA. And Mikkel and Matt are both licensed investment advisors that do work with our clients. So, Rory, appreciate you, Rory. Yeah, it's coming in, man. Really excited with how this turned out. We are, I don't know, got it done in June. It's September, so it's August. About almost 3 full months on the hairline. I'm excited about it. I think it's filling in well. Supposed to be, 6 or 12 months before you get to see the real deal. But thank you for noticing in the kind words. And if, I'm not trying to shill it or anything, but we don't get a kickback. We, went there and shot the video. But if you do want to know about where we got it done in Turkey, just go check out the video that we have on the page. And I would highly recommend. They were great. Estemark was the name of the clinic there in Turkey. Let's see here. You're correct on this, Rob. So covered calls and puts concern selling XRP as it finally increases in value and then not being able to buy it back at a reasonable price or at all. Legit concern. It is a legit concern. Yes, Robbie. Again, we're looking to be able to take strike prices and call options at higher values. We're currently looking for somebody else that's willing to take the opposition on that bet. If we feel that it's too risky, we likely won't do it with clients' assets. And again, that's assessed on a client-to-client basis. So if you want to earn yield, there's going to be some risk associated with it. But at the same time, you do have to sign your assets out of the wallet. So, Liquid Trade says I tagged you in a thread and you didn't respond. When did we break up? I'm sorry, I missed it. I'll have to go back and look for it now. Appreciate you letting me know on the live here. A new camera. Today I don't have my screen on. And so without that on, like my camera auto adjusts, like you can kind of see as I put my hand closer to the screen here, it kind of gets a little bit bluer. And then when I take it away, it'll auto adjust and like the skin, my color comes back. If I have that screen on, then with the white or blue, it like sets an off tone. So wanted to try something different just to see without it. I would agree with you. The camera's a lot clearer without the TV on in the background, but thank you for noticing. Let's see here. All right. I think we're down here finally to where tonight's question started. Miss Wentworth, or Lucas Wentworth, excuse me, says, if price appreciates past the gift tax threshold before I can get my trust set up, can you mitigate the overage with the life insurance policy for the LLC before gifting into the trust? Yes. Had a conversation with a gentleman today that's got a lot of digital assets. It takes at least $5 million to fund a PPLI policy. That's something that we're looking into for him. So that's private placement life insurance. Does have to be structured a specific way, but we can definitely do that. And funding that insurance policy in kind with the assets for a key employee actually allows you to write off paying for that. So you get the tax benefit, and then you have the life insurance policy that you can borrow against, and you can trade the assets inside that policy. You guessed it, tax-free. So we do have a way to be able to mitigate that risk if for some reason your assets do appreciate far beyond the gift tax threshold. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we just really did see $1,000 XRP and just went straight to those prices? I don't know that that's going to happen. It could. I mean, we're in a very long triangle, and like I said, they did draw out an extra 4 years here. So I think there's going to be a pit stop at somewhere between 50 and 100 when they kick this thing on and it is used. But I could be wrong, and I would love to see it just go straight to 4 digits. We'll see which of those things happen. But if that's the case, then I think most people will need that PPLI policy. And we, like I said, definitely get that done. Not a problem. Let's see here. Kevin is gifting the memberships like a madman. Thank you, Kevin. XRP Epi, Peppy. He says, if you had institutional insights into the private ledger, where would you project the price to be by the end of 2025? And given the developments with Tether in Japan, does 2024 still seem promising? Everybody's focused on price right now, man. Same thing I said earlier. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you. Swift, three digits, thinks very reasonable. Back into the stock market. With DTCC and Project Ion, I think 4 digits, very reasonable. So, yeah, I think that still waiting on oil. Starting to become a focus for some other people now too. People that I follow, they're starting to watch that. I think that we could see a spike in that, and that would cause Japan to raise interest rates, and that would cause the unwinding of the carry trade, and that would cause the dumping of treasuries, and that would cause stablecoin regulation, and that would cause sanctions of Tether, and that would cause illiquidity across all the exchanges, and that would cause unrealized losses for the investment banks, and then that would cause a crash in the stock market, and all those unrealized losses would have to be able to be realized very quickly and unwound, and you would need to be able to settle instantly on the back end instead of T+1, and XRP would have to have enough liquidity to be able to do that. And stablecoin regulations would be there. So this is all the dominoes that I see lined up. They're there. It's just waiting for that catalyst. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. All right. conservative asset class. Thank you for the super chat. He says, "Hi Jake, first time live here. Very cool. Glad to see you here. Hopefully you're still here for your question. I know it took a long time to get down to it. A couple of questions. One, your 2 cents for XRP holders around the world. Any updates on XDC since your last XDC video? We've run XRP down a lot already. So hopefully what I've said already suffices for my 2 cents. Updates on XDC. The network is about to get an upgrade. We have some standby nodes on the network. Actually, I need to check on that now that. Anyway, I think that XDC's poised. I mean, I got my shirt on, like, specifically for trade finance. I think that there's going to be some very lucrative opportunities for people to deploy liquidity there, either through nodes and earning, the yield off of that, or I'm looking at investing in the trade finance contracts that are on that network. I made an introduction between Andre Casterman and another gentleman that I know here in Texas that sells electrical equipment. That he provides that to Bitcoin miners and AI providers that need large amounts of GPU, and he is going to try to finance his receivables on the Bitcoin mining equipment on XDC. So it's super cool to see the technology be used to finance equipment that's supporting infrastructure for the technology. Like, I don't know how much more, like, full circle you could get than that. So that was super cool to make that introduction. I'm hopeful that that actually transpires. But it could be very lucrative to provide liquidity in those situations. So let's say I've got receivables from a company that always pays. It's $20 million for assets that I've manufactured overseas that I'm shipping here, but it's going to be 120 days before they land. Just during COVID, there were extremely long lead times on stuff. Let's say 90 days because it's more realistic. I might need liquidity in that period of time, and I'm not going to get paid for that contract until those assets land and they receive them, right? Paid upon receipt. So I might finance that to somebody at 90%. So I'd take 18 million up front, and they get the contract, and in 90 days they get 20 million. That's pretty good. I mean, you could just do that 4 times a year with the same capital, and you're getting a 40% return on your money, 10% a quarter. So, I mean, you could just take that 10% a quarter as income, right? You could do a lot with $2 million if you had 20 million to loan. So, or 18 million to loan, right? You could just do that over and over again and make it $2 million a quarter if you had the right partner and the right contracts and somebody else needed the liquidity. And eventually you'll be able to do that on chain on XDC. And guess what that'll do? The value of the token goes up because it's got to provide liquidity for those transactions. So anyway, I think that'll be, that's something that we're looking at. We want to obviously utilize the technology and derive benefit and returns from it, but also drive value into the assets that our clients hold. That way it's, positive feedback loop. But anyway, that's what I'm seeing on XDC. I think the network upgrades here shortly. They should add more master nodes to the network. I think they're poised to do really well in the coming years. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. Shawnee, Montana. They say, Jake, if someone has crypto and I trust capital, can they move it to your company and produce yield? The answer is yes. We can do that inside of an IRA. We've worked out a way to do that, which again, nobody else on the market has that capability. So we would love to be able to do that for you. Again, to work with somebody, we need to have the value of the total assets that they are bringing to us between non-qualified and qualified funds to be in excess of $100,000 at current market value. So always a consideration there. I think you have, well, I don't know if I mentioned this on here or not. I know we put it out to our network, But if you do have an iTrust Capital account and you do want to migrate it, we're going to waive the fees on our side through the end of this month. So all you got to do is initiate that, though. So they don't have to be moved this month because it's a process. But if you reach out to us and you say this month that I want to move my iTrust Capital account over to you guys, we will waive the onboarding fees on our side to help you get the assets over and start earning yield on them. Let's see here. DFIN. They say, is SOB 121 a problem anymore? If a bank wants to custody crypto, there seems to be a way to work around it. What was the feeling in the room of the banks? They're still super leery. Until they get a no action letter from the SEC, they're not doing it. I know banks hold digital assets on their balance sheet. It's held under software or somewhere else if they're a publicly traded company. But those aren't clients' assets, right? It's their assets. So they can put it wherever they want on their balance sheet. It's going to be counterparties' assets. If you are custodying those for liability and because of FTX and a lot of stuff, they wanted those listed on the balance sheet so that there was visibility of the exposure that institutions had. I don't think that's right. I think, a lot of clients' assets are held off balance sheet. They shouldn't be public information. But yeah, the investment banks are still, until SOB 121 is completely removed, or they've been given a no action letter by the SEC, like BNY Mellon, they're still hesitant to hold client assets. Now, assets for themselves, like I said, that's a different story. They may have an allocation. They might hold those. But it's not clients' assets. That's, again, we have competitive advantage because we're willing to do that right now while nobody else is. So good and bad, first mover advantage, which is good, but at the same time, you need competition. I think competition's good, and I think hopefully eventually there won't be any custody fees for people. Let's see here. I'm trying to find another good. I'll just go ahead and get on. Well, here's one more super chat. Always answer those. So, Will, thank you, sir. He says, "Hi, Jake. I could have sworn a few months ago you said BlackRock could technically use that ETF filing done in Delaware in 2023. Is that true?" Yes. So that trust is not listed on Delaware's website anymore. They've taken it down, but it was filed. They went through all the legal proceedings that were required for an ETF on XRP, and then when it was found out that existed and a little price action happened, they said no. Well, they didn't say no. Bloomberg came out and said that they talked to BlackRock and that BlackRock didn't do it. BlackRock never said anything. They retweeted one thing from Bloomberg. Never made an official statement. Ripple never made an official statement. Very weird. In the one other circumstance where that actually did happen, where an ETF was faked, Grayscale and the company CEO for the asset both came out same day within 24 hours. And both of them said it was fake and it was not real. Okay. We didn't have that from either one of the companies associated with this transaction. The only party that came out and said that it was fake was that one reporter from Bloomberg that said he called somebody at BlackRock. To file that, there's a lot of notarization that's required on that, and it's not fakeable, in my opinion. So yeah, I think they could definitely stand that back up. Let's see here. We've got Jason Grove says, "What time are the Discord calls? I've seemed to miss them when I log in." Yeah, so for people that might want to join the Mastermind, we have them on Saturdays. We moved it to Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So we'll see you guys this Saturday at that time. And then we do the digital asset discussion on Mondays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So those are the 2 calls that we have each week. Carbon 2 has a separate call. It's bi-weekly. But yeah, and if you miss them, they're in the business resources section. They're recorded and they're posted there for people to review back to them later on. If you can't make it for whatever reason, we do have people across the globe in there. People from the UK, Canada, Australia, Japan, Brazil, Canada, obviously the US, UK. I may have already said that. The broader EU, Middle East also, Dubai, crazy. The people across the globe that hold XRP and other digital assets that want to be proactive and make sure that they're set up and want to be able to participate on private deals, and be in a community with aligned interests. So it's super excited. But yeah, that's the times for the calls. And again, if people want to be a part of the community, you want to try it out, all you got to do is, go sign up, and you can use Beyond Broke, all capitals, 1 MO, capital MO, and you get a free month. You can try it out. If you don't like it, cancel. We want to make it super easy for people. Prices will go up 10x on the other side of price appreciation, and the vetting for the community will be much more stringent than it is now. Right now, all you got to do is go friend me on LinkedIn. Pretty simple, just want to make sure that you're a real person. But you will, if you do that, most often get approved. And would love to have you as part of the community before, price appreciation happens. And I think we're gonna have a lot of people beating down the door after that. But we want to make sure that we're taking care of the people that have believed in us and been part of that community for a long time, and protect them also. I think that there may be some malicious things that may happen post price appreciation. We don't want people to lose assets or have problems. So anyway, would love to have you guys there if that's something that you're interested in. And business resources section there, Jason, if you missed them. And the 2 times that I mentioned are when we normally have the calls. Occasionally I'll travel and it's off, but I would say 95% of the time, that's where they stand. Another question. They say, do you have any review or advice regarding Delos Banker, a crypto company bank, or is it easier to let you do the bank side while handling custody through DAG or Digital Wealth Partners? Yeah, so with Digital Wealth Partners, we set up a bank account for you at Anchorage. No problem. But it's always good to have a separate account for your LLC or trust. Mercury, Bank of America, Capital One may be another good one. We had a gentleman the other day that set one up with them, and they asked him about crypto, and he said yes, and they were cool with it. So that might be another option. And I think a lot of banks are going to be much more friendly toward crypto on the other side of price appreciation and utility. So I've never heard of that bank. Doesn't mean that they're a bad bank. But yeah, happy to work with you in that capacity if that's something you're interested in, if you're going to work with us. Let's see here. Andrew says, are these folks that scooping those kind of numbers, double dig millions, looking to quickly double or triple long-term? Curious. So just maybe for context, we threw our event last Thursday, which was great. Again, I had a really good time. Got to meet some other people here in Dallas that I had never met before that attended the event. Through one of those connections, I was, invited to an occasion on Tuesday night this week, which I went to, had a really good time, and met a bunch of other people there that have allocations to crypto. And just as you would, get into conversations with people and talk about some of the things that I've discussed this evening, and people, their eyes open and it makes sense to them and it clicks and they're like, think I might buy some of that. And I'm like, you do you. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. Don't crucify me. Take it with a grain of salt. Do your own research. But yeah, they are looking for returns. I've also explained to them the service offering that we have and how we could help them mitigate taxes, which was also super appreciated. So, I don't know if they'll quickly sell, but I'm sure that they'll probably sell a portion of it. I posted this the other day. Edward says, do you have any idea on why Bitcoin is going up in price when it is a test coin, and do you believe it will collapse? I think 75,000 is the top. So we either already topped earlier in the cycle at like 73.5, or it's going to have one more push up to about 75,000, and then I think the wind will get sucked out of its sails with Tether. So just my opinion, one guy. I'm the only person that I've heard say that. Nobody else is calling for a $75,000 top. Everybody else says it goes to 100,000 million, blah, blah, blah. I think that's my assessment of the situation. And surprisingly, when I put that tweet out, a lot of people agreed. I thought it would have a lot of opposition from people, but I think maybe it's kind of drug on long enough now that people are like, okay, maybe 75 is the top. I think if I had posted that 4 or 5 months ago when we were at 73 or 74, I think a lot of people would have just poo-pooed more so than they did. So anyway, that's one man's opinion. Take it as you will. Let's see here. Got about another 30 minutes. We'll run it down with you guys. Appreciate all of the questions, by the way. Gemini's asked a good question here. So we had a gentleman come in the Mastermind group and mention Lobster Wallet not too long ago. I'll tell you guys why I don't like Lobster Wallet. Any of the stuff that you're mentioning here. Anybody that says quantum financial system, don't believe. I think that's still much further off, 3 to 5 years, to actually be quantum. XLM and Stellar, I think, they have Sorband smart contracts. There's a lot of applications there. I think peer-to-peer payments. There's not going to be stocks launched on Hyperledger, in my opinion. There might be representations of certain things that peer-to-peer people can trade. Velo is an example of that. We saw a nice little price move in Velo the other day for people that hold that. Whoop whoop. But yeah, anything to do with Lobster Wallet, I would stay far, far away from. I had a client that reached out that, come to find out, they lost about $30 million in Lobster Wallet. So yeah, I have no time for that. Have other people been scammed? Absolutely. It's prevalent in that ecosystem. So anybody that's telling you quantum financial system on XLM, I'm not saying they're not good people. I think there's a lot of good people that may have misinformation and spread that because they're hopeful that certain narratives and storylines and things play out that they want to. I'm a realist. I think everything's kind of in the middle of the bell curve. I don't think it's going to be a utopia. I don't think it's going to be a dystopia. I think the quality of life for the average person is going to come up like it has over the last 100 years for everybody, and it'll continue in that pattern. But I still think there's going to be some not so good stuff that goes on in the world, because the world is that way, unfortunately. So Nasara Jasara or Great Reset, same thing, somewhere in the middle. It's my opinion. And I've told Mel that, if he's one of the ones you're mentioning. I like Mel. Mel's good people. But yeah, anybody that says, XLM, QFS investments, I would just be cautious. That's all I'll say. Do your due diligence. Let's see here. Harris, hope you're well. Blockchain backer said, generally after a rate cut, the market crashes after 81 days. Do you see XRP appreciate by the period of time much later, when the poop hits the fan. I think we're not too far off. I think we could be, I've said weeks on Twitter before. I will stick with that. That was maybe a week ago when I said weeks. So same thing Brad Garlinghouse said earlier in September, late August. He said weeks. Weeks to me means less than 2 months. So we got, somewhere between another 2 to 5 weeks here, 2 to 4 weeks, that I think we are going to see some significant price appreciation in the market. And again, if I'm wrong, I will admit it. I will come on here publicly and say it, but that is my opinion. Let's see here. Dennis, what do you think most favored banks like BNY Mellon give permission to custody assets over smaller players who have been waiting? I think they're going to try and give mostly to big banks. Yeah, they're going to give it to big banks. And you look. The world works a specific way, okay? I understand that. I don't like it any more than anybody else does. But that's how it works. And I don't want to say rightly so, but kind of. I mean, BNY has better security and all the things that are necessary to provide the highest level of service for that custody. So if you were going to give it to somebody, like BNY is who you give it to. Smaller banks don't have there's a reason they don't custody 55 trillion in assets. Okay. BNY doesn't lose assets. They manage them well. They've aggregated a name behind custody. That's what they do. So I'm not mad about it at all. I think if it's very logical first step, if you were going to introduce that to any player in the space, that's who it would be. So, does it show favoritism? Absolutely. Is that wrong? I don't know. I kind of don't think so. I think I would rather them do it first, make sure it's done correctly and right, and then be able to pass it to all of the other players. Because they can set a very high standard and a bar on what that looks like, right? And if you set the bar high and it's a good standard and these are the ways that it needs to be done and everybody else has to come up to meet that, sometimes other banks aren't going to have the resources or the capital or the other things necessary to be able to do that. So they're going to have to go through different means or partner with somebody else, right? They might have to partner with BNY Mellon to provide that service for their clients. And BNY may be able to charge a fee for that. Again, don't necessarily like how the world works, but that's how it works. And I can't change any of those things until I have an actual seat at the table, which is part of the goal long term. So anyway, ethically, is it fair? No, but neither is capitalism. So, and I like capitalism. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. Glitch in the Matrix. Cool name. Thank you for all the advice. Appreciate the air quotes. I'll just keep DCAing until the cows come home. I think that's a wonderful plan. Let's see here. This is good. Mitchell, thank you for this question. Just guidance and wisdom would be good. That's what I pray for most of the time, because I don't know everything. I have a lot of faith. Believe that, universe, big man upstairs, taking care of me. I've seen that a lot in my life. As long as I'm in alignment with what he's asked me to do, things work out. And so it's not always easy. It's not always fun. Stressful. But I also believe that you're given things in order to turn you into the person that you need to be able to handle the gifts that God's going to give you, right? So, yeah, just wisdom and guidance would be fantastic if you felt compelled to pray for that. Thank you. Let's see here. He also says, Gary let me accumulate a lot more, so I'm okay with him, but he still needs to go. I agree. He does need to go in order for things. But yeah, I'm glad he was in for the little short period he was. Honest Aim, thank you for the super chat, brother. He says, Jake, thanks for all your help and all you do for us. We're on board with DWP. Awesome. Super excited to have you and your wife on with us, brother. Thank you for working with us and all the support. Big watch dude. Is that like a big watch on your wrist or like I don't know. Cool. I like the name. How are you? I am blessed. I signed up for the free membership. Awesome. I'm considering opening an account at Claver and Brown, but will it make a difference if I do it before or after a liquidity event? I'd get it done before, and I would go ahead and attach your bank account, and I would do some transactions just to make sure that everything's set up and ready to go. That way you don't have any problems post-liquidity event. I have a feeling that they may be inundated, and if you have your broker's number and you can call them when things are happening, or be able to set your limit price or whatever else you want to execute with them, I think you're going to be better off if you're proactive on that front. So I think we have there's a video on the channel that I shot with Jake Boyle. If you want to reach out to him, or Andrew is our broker there at Caleb and Brown. I'm sure that they'd be more than happy to help you get things going. Rob says my hair is luscious. I don't know if it's luscious yet, but thank you, Rob. It's a good laugh, and I really do appreciate the kind words. Jake, is your IRA product available in October to generate yield? If so, what digital assets are acceptable in the IRA product? So Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP would be the main three that we'd be able to provide custody and yield for inside of an IRA. And again, yeah, that'll be, we're almost at the end of September here. It'll be mid-October when we're able to provide that service for people. But again, if you want to go ahead and initiate that conversation, we're going to waive fees for anybody moving over an IRA that comes to us in September to move that. So you have until Monday or Tuesday next week to initiate that transaction to get the fees waived. Let's see here. Stablecoin regulations will require to buy treasuries. Dollars, cash, or cash equivalents, backed 1-to-1 for any stable coins that are issued. So PayPal, Amazon, Facebook, Google. I think you're going to get stable coins from a lot of social media platforms and enterprise players that you may or may not expect. Starbucks might be one of those people. You might see McDonald's do that. I think that there's going to be some players that, are outside the scope of what most people imagine on the stable coins that issue them. And if they need backing, they're going to have treasuries or cash to do that. So, and if they have treasuries, it earns a yield. So why wouldn't you hold the treasuries over the cash? just my opinion. Let's see here. AJ, Al Point One, appreciate you being here. He says, thanks for being grounded with your comments. Absolutely. Do you think it's possible that BTC will crash when/if Tether is sanctioned, and this would happen when RLUSD gets released? I think that's exactly how things will go. I don't think that RLUSD will ever be as big as Tether, and I don't think Tether goes away. I think Tether likely ends up being rolled into the U.S. government in some capacity. The interesting thing about the sanction when it comes for Tether, once stablecoin regs are passed, is they won't be able to unwind the BTC that's on their balance sheet that's currently in the lawsuit with, I don't remember if it's Celsius or Voyager, but it's like 1.3 or 1.4 billion BTC current value that's in litigation with them. So they won't be able to dump that off their balance sheet, and because of that, they won't be within compliance. And there's a lot of other reasons. There's a lot of transactions going into Iran and Russia and other sanctioned territories using Tether. You can look on on the globe, and it's a public network. So anyway, I think that they're going to have some problems, and I do think it'll cause a liquidity crisis across all the exchanges. I think people will freak out. I think people will liquidate positions in BTC in order, pulling it into USDC or Paxos to get it out of there before it's a problem. I think it'll cause a huge downturn in the market, but I do think there will be some assets that are on the upswing. I think, the Bitcoin dominance will plunge while the alts are rocketing while that's going on. And I do think RLUSD plays a role in that, but Ripple, when I was at CoinAlts last year, I got to listen to Brad speak, and he talked about ODL. I asked him specifically about ODL, and he said that they did use Tether in certain jurisdictions because it was more liquid than XRP, and they wanted to settle in dollars, so that's what they were using. I think they have since stopped using USDT in that capacity, and I think that that's what they're looking to facilitate with RLUSD. Is when both counterparties are willing to settle in dollars, then you don't need an intermediary asset for ODL. So anyway, excited to see that profit go to Ripple instead of Tether, which according to reports, Tether was more profitable than BlackRock last year. Or maybe they are BlackRock. Here's another super chat. Thank you, KHUD. How many other digital assets are you thinking about having part of what you're moving forward with? XLM, HBAR, Link, VET, Atom, so on. Yeah, all the ones that you mentioned there, we can already do. Chainlink. I like VeChain. I like Hedera. I like XLM and Stellar. I think all those are going to be used for different purposes, and we'll see some significant price appreciation from current values. Algorand is another one of those. Quant, potentially. Not overly bullish on Quant. I still don't quite understand the mechanism for the value creation there. But I know a lot of people that are, and they are part of a lot of consortiums that do matter. So I don't think they're going anywhere. But yeah, I think, there's a significant amount of assets that we will continue to push Anchorage to custody, Flare, Songbird, of the things as they come down the pike that people want to get into are definitely things that we will, be able to source, find a broker for, be able to custody. So thank you for the question, and thank you for the super chat. Let's see here. Dennis, thank you for the super chat. He says, after a liquidity event, is there a strategy or tool that I can use to retire both my parents? It's a great goal. Should I open an insurance policy for each of them to borrow from? You absolutely could. Yeah. That would be a great way to be able to mitigate taxes for you, structure that for them, have the insurance policies beneficiary be the trust that you set up. Those assets would flow back into the trust upon their death, and the cash value would pay off anything they borrowed against those life insurance policies during their lifetime. You would be able to potentially trade the assets if it's PPLI inside those policies and continue to grow the cash value and the assets themselves. So when I sold insurance when I was younger, and I was like, God, this is a scam after I figured it out. I was like, why would anybody buy whole life or indexed universal life or like any of these products? These seem such like a skeezy way, and it just takes a bunch of money and never builds any cash value, and it's horrible. Didn't know that you could overfund them and use them as an infinite banking mechanism like that's how financial products and insurance are supposed to be used here in the US, and that's why they're structured that way. If you are not a high net worth individual and don't have a ton of money to put inside and I don't want to say overfund because you could turn it into a mech, but fund things in a specific way, then they don't make a whole lot of sense. But and the US is the only place in the world that has insurance policies and financial products mixed. No place else has it. So, and it's for those reasons. It's something that the wealthy here use to be able to protect their assets and not pay taxes. So happy to work with you on that if it's something that you would like to do for your parents. Great question, by the way. Where are we at on time here? We got 10 more minutes and we're going to wrap it up for the evening. Did I get to the bottom? I got to the bottom. Hey, very cool. K-HUD says, respectfully, you're offering security with BTC, ETH, XRP. Will you broaden the scope of digital? Yeah. So we have a broader scope than that. We can do quant. We can do almost any EVM chain they have there at Anchorage. Avalanche, Solana, Matic, which is EVM, obviously. Polygon, I think we can do Polkadot, and Uniswap. There's a ton of stuff that we can custody. I just don't know that that's palatable for the majority of the people watching this. A lot of things we're pushing for here in Q4 are XLM, HBAR, and XDC are the main three that we're advocating that Anchorage add to their scope of assets here in Q4, and I think that we will get that. That's a good question. What do you think about XLR price upside? I think it has some potential for sure. I think that one of the main things that we were waiting on the adoption of XRP for was JP Morgan to be able to make sure that they weren't going to become irrelevant and be interoperable. And the EVM sidechain and XLR are interoperable with Onyx, which is JP Morgan's EVM solution for their smart contracts and their private permissioned ecosystem. So you could bet that they're going to be using it. So if you own some of that token that's associated with that, I would say that there's a probability that will increase as volume over that network increases. I don't to what prices, I have no clue. I don't even have an estimate, but I think there could be. You asked for price upside. I think yes. Stronghold. I think Stronghold's going to get, is my assessment of Stronghold. So that token can be used in that ecosystem to transmit value. I don't think they're ever going to aggregate as much as Stripe or any other payment processor, because that's what they do. And then they also loan against your reoccurring payments and volume, just like Stripe and other payment processors do. They're just doing it with their token, and they pay out rewards in their ecosystem for using that, and then fees for the payment transmission in their ecosystem in the token, right? Or you can sell it on a secondary market for value. It's a rewards mechanism inside their ecosystem. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a smart idea. I think that they'll get acquired by Stripe or another payment processor. But just my 2 cents. We'll see what ends up shaking out, which isn't bad. It's not a bad thing. If you the more volume you could run through it, the higher the price of the token would go, right? So, K-HUD says, can we sell OTC without under LLC or trust? No. We only work with people that have an entity established for their digital assets, and we have the lowest cost anywhere OTC on liquidating assets. We're 20 basis points, and that's it. There's no spread. Anything outside of that, it's just 20 basis points. So, yeah, you would need that to be able to work with us. Andrew says, you man, again, appreciate the kind words. Just here to provide value and help people. I hear that we have a Jake imposter, and they're not in the mastermind, but I understand. Propose a proof of hairline. Looks great, brother. Thank you. Yeah, anytime you're out on social media, I'm sure you've seen this with Lewis and pretty much anybody else that has a presence. Unfortunately, there are scammers that exist out there that use your likeness and create accounts and message people and pretend to be you. I will never message you on Discord. You will never get a message from me. So just to be clear, if anybody joins the mastermind group and you get a message from something that looks like me, it's not me. Didn't do it. I do not message other people on there. I will answer messages that are sent to me from people in our mastermind group. I have no problem doing that. But I have never initiated a conversation on Discord and won't. So if you get something from somebody else that's, impersonating me, please report them. Please block them. It's not me. Same thing on Twitter. Very unusual. I will occasionally DM somebody else if they comment on my stuff and say, hey, I would like you to DM me for da-da-da. And if I feel like it's relevant, I'll DM them. But that's the only time I ever DM anybody else. I don't just randomly reach out to people on any social media platform. I do my best to respond to people that reach out to me. But again, it's not anything that I will be doing. So anybody that's reaching out to you that's impersonating me, please block, report. We don't need that. So thank you all for doing those things. Thank you again for the super chat. They say thank you for your time as an investment in our community. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here this evening and taking the time out to listen. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Thank you everybody for hopping on here. Again, if you want to participate in the mastermind, check it out. We do have these cool mugs again that I will be giving out at the next event that we throw. You're going to go to mastermind.beyondbroke.com and you can use the code for a month free. It's beyondbroke, all capitals, 1, the number 1, MO, all capitals again. Get you a free month in social or Carbon One. If you want to work with the family office on the estate planning side, or if you want to do the wealth management, you can go to the websites. It is digitalfamilyoffice.io, or if it's on the wealth management side, it's going to be digitalwealthpartners.net. So appreciate you guys hanging out on a Wednesday night. Actually, Thursday night. Internet, was down last night. So we normally do them Monday and Wednesday nights. So we will be back next Monday. And until then, God bless, and we will see y'all on the next one.